Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, Michigan Week.
It's the Monday of Michigan Week, or as they say in Columbus, the Unday of Michigan Week.
No air horn?
See, I don't have the air horn app open.
Aw.
I think I just saved that for the Patreon show.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so. If you want to hear the air horn app, you have to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly.
If you would like to hear an air horn, which you could only hear at that site.
Exclusively.
So, we've got a series of shows planned for this week. Today's show is a mailbag, basically, from Buckeye fans.
I think you mean ale bag, but go on.
From an ale bag.
We can't do this the whole show.
There's no way. There's no way. So yes, Michigan mailbag from Buckeye fans. I solicited some requests via Twitter and from the Ozone message board, and I think we've got enough to at least crank something out, right?
We have your questions. We answer them. This is how this works.
Yeah.
I think
if it doesn't work out well, that's not our fault.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go.
All right, first one from @Spike_Mon. Last year, OSU found a schematic gap in Michigan's number one defense that blew the game open. This year, the number one defense is on the other team. Have you seen anything that would make you think the Michigan offense will have sustained success?
I think what will need to happen is, I think what we've said all along is they're going to have to hit some big shots down the field. I don't think either of us expect them to be able to run, although Michigan sometimes runs a little bit better than they are expected to because they put everything into this game. Like, you play your very best. You're a little stronger. You're a little quicker. I don't expect a sustained running game, but as far as like glaring weaknesses, I think Penn State tried to expose some of that with Freiermuth on Pete Werner. It didn't really work. I'm still interested in seeing a competent quarterback attack downfield, and not necessarily downfield, but just attack these corners. And you can't really do it downfield. You have to do quick stuff because of Chase Young. But where's the weak spot? Where's the tendency or the...
Right. I think that I'm with you that if they're going to score kind of consistently, they're going to have some big plays through the air. I don't know how else you do it. Because they've been, if they run a little better on offense than they've been running like 3 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. So if they run a little better and then you adjust it down for the Ohio State defense, like, what is that? 3 yards a carry?
It goes up to 4 and then back down to 3.
Right. It just, I don't see them being able to run the ball consistently. And, maybe they pop a 20-yarder at some point or something. But, just in terms of being able to move the ball down the field, put together a sustained drive, it's not going to happen on the ground. So it has to happen through the air. And Ohio State's corners are pretty darn good. They've done a very good job of limiting big plays. You haven't seen those like 70-yard touchdown passes against Ohio State this year. So, Michigan has a very good receiving corps. This is unquestionably the best receiving corps Ohio State has faced this season. Nikko Collins is a huge, big play threat. But the path for Michigan to win probably involves Nikko Collins with like 150 yards receiving.
Yeah, I think what we might see them do is kind of what they've done the last few weeks is not necessarily abandon the run, but abandon the run and maybe do some 5 wide stuff. And then because they've got, like you said, really good receivers. They got Ronnie Bell, who is their leading receiver, who plays in the slot a lot. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who plays in the slot a lot. Then you've got like Giles Jackson, this freshman who had like a 50-yard catch out of the backfield on a wheel route this past week. So they're finding new ways. Mike Sainer still, the other freshman, who is getting involved. Oh yeah, you still have Tariq Black, who is a guy on the edge outside. And then if you spread them out, because you will have a tight end in there, then you're bringing in Pete Werner again into this, and like everybody has a guy. And then now it comes back to, can you beat your guy, or does Ohio State hold up? So maybe they try that, and maybe there's some success there in various spots. Nikko Collins this past week against Indiana had like a 79-yarder, but it wasn't his typical 79-yarder. It was just a little slant behind the linebacker in front of a safety, in front of his corner, and then he took it and went the distance. Maybe something like that where you don't have Jordan Fuller as the last line of defense because he is occupied with a man.
Yeah, possibly. The problem with Michigan going 5 wide is, okay, then you only have 5 offensive linemen, and you're going to try and block Chase Young.
And Ohio State
hope those are short passing routes.
Exactly, and that's why you got the slants and stuff like that, because The one thing coaches never want to be is one-dimensional, and when your pass rush knows that you are throwing the ball, now Shea Patterson can run some draws.
That's I think where the run game probably comes in is you spread them 5 wide and Shea Patterson runs a draw, and Shea Patterson is not going to run it like Justin Fields ran it last week, but he can.
No, I could see.
Move the chains,
I could see him having the long rush of the day for Michigan with like a 25, 30-yarder or something where it's everything is completely vacated, and maybe he beats Stuff Borland to the edge, or Baron Browning. Tom,
you're the one who's talking. I'm the one who's just smiling and listening.
But something like that, not unlike what Justin Fields did this past week with Penn State. So, yeah, this is going to be. You look at the quarterbacks that Ohio State has faced this year. Shea Patterson might be far and away the best, and I'm not saying he's all that great.
He's fine. He's perfectly okay. I think that if you look at Justin Fields as a 5-star prospect and what he has turned into, and Shea Patterson as a 5-star prospect and what he has turned into, there's a gap there in terms of production, in terms of probably the faith that the coaching staff has in that person to not do 2 to 3 completely insane things during the course of a
That's
game.
the problem.
So, I mean, I think we said this on the Patreon show on Sunday or Saturday night. There are pathways for Michigan to win this game. This is like one of those presidential elections where it's like, okay, if Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania are out of the picture, what is this candidate's pathway to victory? Michigan has a pathway to victory without running the ball, but it involves probably winning the turnover battle and hitting some big plays through the air. Next one from at Antonimol. What Michigan players would start for Ohio State?
I was thinking about this a little bit. Let's just run it down. Quarterback, no. Running backs, no. Receivers, they would definitely be in the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Nikko Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Ronnie Bell, and KJ Hill.
Yeah,
because he would be ahead of Jalen Gill, I assume.
Yeah, probably.
So, and you would consider them all co-starters. So those 3 guys. Offensive line. Are you going to put Ben Bredesen ahead of Jonah Jackson at left guard?
I mean, you can.
I think they're happy with Jonah Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a conversation there. You could have a conversation at center with Cesar Ruiz, maybe.
I don't think there's anything clear.
There is not a clear-cut, absolute, definitely this guy on the offensive line.
And then defensively,
is Devin Bush still there? No.
No. Any of the no.
Like Michigan's corners are good. Ambry Thomas and Leverett Hill are good, but Ohio State has 3 corners that are probably all going to be pretty good NFL players at some point.
I saw a projection of Sean Wade possibly in the top 20 now. So I guess kiss him goodbye.
Yeah.
But there's nobody on that Michigan defense. Cameron McGrone, who's I think a redshirt freshman middle linebacker, is playing well, but no. Khalid Hudson he topped out in 2017. Mm-hmm. He's done nothing really since.
Daxton Hill, Ohio State would love to have, but he's not starting this year.
Right. Josh Uche has been doing better, but again, I think Ohio State is okay at they don't even use that rush end linebacker thing that.
Right, that was like the Sam Hubbard role as the last guy that really kind of had that role for Ohio State. I mean, it seems like Cade Stover might be getting that role at some point, but he's not in that role really as a starter yet.
Yeah.
Next one from at Mr_Mike42. Ryan Day had an out-of-body experience. I'm worried about him being conservative and running fields too much like JT. Day was always one step ahead until this Penn State game.
I think I kind of expected Justin Fields to start running the ball more now because it is so effective and he is good at it and he's a big guy and it works. I mean, the dude rushed for over 100 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
and so why wouldn't you? But I think we're all a little surprised that they didn't throw the ball as much as they could have, based on how terrible Penn State's pass defense is. But then you get a couple of turnovers in there, and you start to get a little nerve-wracky. And that's what coaches do.
Right. Well, I mean, they were running the ball effectively. It wasn't like they were pounding the ball into the line for 2 yards per carry and just kind of kept banging their head against that wall. They were moving the ball. They went 92 yards down the field on the first drive and mostly did it on the ground. You know, if a team can run the ball, that is kind of the surest way to win. Ohio State did not throw the ball for 5,000 yards last year because that was what they thought would be, you know, this is fun. They did that because they couldn't run the ball.
Yeah, and they also did that because they couldn't stop anybody. And now you have an Ohio State defense that can stop people, and Ryan Day very much was confident that his defense would hold up Penn State, and Penn State had 1 drive over 50 yards, 3 drives over 20 yards. So I think they did that. You give up 1 actual touchdown drive.
Right, and the 1 actual touchdown drive came right after Sean Clifford got hurt, when the backup comes in and Penn State starts running stuff that Ohio State has very clearly not game prepped for. And then once they sort of adjusted to that, then, I mean, Penn State scored again, but they scored on 12-yard and 11-yard drives after that. So that's probably not on the defense at that point. Next one from Benjamin J. Landon. How does Ohio State prepare for awful weather without just hoping it doesn't mess things up?
Tom, let me ask you, who does let's not say awful weather, maybe a little rain or snow, not super windy, I don't think, but again, it's 5 days out, 6 days out. Things can change. I would think Michigan would want as ideal conditions as possible in this game, even though they did rush for 300 yards in the rain against Notre Dame. But I don't know if you are aware, or if your listeners are aware, Notre Dame's defense is not Ohio State's defense.
Is that a fact?
That is a fact.
Wow.
You can look that up on Wikipedia.
Interesting. Is that because Ohio State has won any kind of major bowl game in the last 30 years? Is that how you can tell the difference between those teams?
You can tell the difference between those teams because Notre Dame is busy reading books. And they have their glasses on because they're all 4 eyes.
Probably books about the distant past based on
based on their football
Michigan's
program. Library.
Yes. I mean, if Michigan had the opportunity to build a dome on Michigan Stadium between now and Saturday, they probably would do that. They, if it was, I mean, let's just go worst case scenario. If it's snowing hard and 30-mile-an-hour winds, first of all, boy, I hope the windows in the press box are closed. Second of all, I don't know how Michigan moves the ball at that point. I mean, Ohio State should be able to move the ball on the ground in a way that Michigan can't. And that's, if it comes down to that, then Ohio State probably wins the game unless you have some crazy number of turnovers. So I think bad weather probably favors Ohio State. The worse it is, the harder it is for Michigan to throw, and the harder it is for Michigan to win.
And you have a Michigan quarterback who is prone to fumbling the ball. And I say that knowing that Justin Fields fumbled the ball twice last week, but those were 3 times actually, but those were all contact fumbles, whereas Shea Patterson can sometimes just lose the ball.
Yeah.
And just as in the mesh point or handing the ball off and have it scored out or even not getting the snap. So they want as ideal conditions as possible because they know, just look at the way they're not running the ball the last couple of weeks, they know they can't.
Yeah, and the last time I looked at the forecast, it was kind of basically exactly what it was for the Penn State kind of game. High 30s, maybe getting to 40 degrees, and like a 50% chance of rain, and it was just kind of like rain showers in the afternoon, basically. So, that's not going to probably, it seemed like probably a little less rain than the second half of the Penn State game, probably, but again, we're 5-6 days out at this point, so who knows?
And they'll practice outside. They'll, if need be, they'll throw some balls in the bucket of water and practice with some wet footballs as well.
After the number of fumbles they had on Saturday, I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of ball security drills this week at practice. Next one from @MoreFBall. Should Ohio State tank the Michigan game because a win in the conference championship would likely propel them into the playoffs, while giving Harbaugh possibly 4 to 5 more years in Ann Arbor?
That's an interesting. We've talked about a loss here may give Ohio State a better seeding if they can't get to 1. Being 4 would be better than 2 because you get to avoid Clemson a little bit longer. I hadn't thought about the whole aspect of this gives Harbaugh some breathing room. It's hard to say, Tom. It's hard to argue at this point that losing this game would actually be a better thing than winning for Ohio State. I may write that just for the clicks and the outrage. If I was that kind of merchant.
So when are you going to write that?
I will do that later this evening after I get Michigan Monday done.
Knowing that you are that kind of merchant.
And I will do it in all caps.
Here's my question to people who want Michigan to keep Jim Harbaugh as long as possible. Who is Michigan bringing in that's going to be better than Jim Harbaugh?
Greg Schiano.
Oh, is he available?
He sure is.
But
Michigan would have to commit to, football, and I don't know if they will do that.
I would love to go on an extended 15-minute rant on the whole Greg Schiano Rutgers thing, but I don't think our listeners are probably most interested in Rutgers football this week.
You missed Rutgers week 2 weeks ago.
Oh man, wouldn't say I missed it. I mean, when Harbaugh came in, the consensus was basically like, if anyone can win at Michigan, this guy is the guy who's going to do it. 5 years in, welp, Indianapolis is still a rumor. So, what if? Hear me out here. What if Michigan this is what they are?
Yeah.
And I'm only basing that on the fact that they have been literally this for pretty much every year since 1948, except one in which Ohio State literally Stanley Jackson had a couple unfortunate plays. They gave a punt return, and that was it.
Yeah.
And because Ohio State physically dominated that game. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back and boy, if you want to relive some painful memories, Ohio State fans, go back and watch that 1997 Michigan game and think about how close Ohio State came to winning that game by about 21 points.
No, don't do it. Yeah, you're right. They've heard tell of Indianapolis, but if you go into the Michigan football facilities and look at maps of America, west of the Ohio line is just like ocean and like sea serpents in the oceans.
Here be monsters.
Exactly.
Of course, in the Ohio State facility, it says here be onsters. So he's just smiling and shaking his head sadly. Podcasting is a visual medium. You have to actually use the words.
Shake, shake, shake.
You have to actually say the words, you're such an idiot. Otherwise, people don't know.
Tom.
Otherwise, people won't know what you think.
No, my silence speaks loudly.
At Patrick Smith _RN, what are your legitimate thoughts on the game this year? Do you feel like Michigan has a legit chance, or are the Buckeyes too good and deep? Will they slow the offense down enough to be in it? Will Ohio State be able to run and pass? Will they be able to run and pass?
Go ahead.
I think they have a chance. Michigan has a chance. This is a game where if they play it 4 times, Michigan maybe wins 1. That seems probably, the point spread is 9, and, that's basically like a 1 in 4 kind of chance, more or less. So that's probably about right. It has to be a game where if Ohio State plays like they played against Penn State last week, that's a losable game. If Ohio State plays like they've played for most of the season, it's probably not a losable game. You would need someone from Michigan. If Ohio State plays like they did for most of September and October and maybe even early November, you need someone from Michigan just basically turning into the Hulk for them to win the game at that point. You've seen Ohio State has, somewhat tasted its own blood at this point. But last week was a top 10 team, a team that beat Michigan, and that was a game where Ohio State didn't play particularly well, left some opportunities on the field, and also had a lot of bounces go against them. And they still beat a top 10 team in the country by 2 scores. So, there's not a lot that could cause Ohio State to lose, but, there's opportunities. There's stuff out there.
Because I could even see Ohio State losing the turnover battle by a couple and still winning by 11 again. If you look at this game, if you take Ohio State and Michigan out of it and just look at the fact what Ohio State does on offense, what they do on defense, what Michigan does on offense and defense, this would be, 14 or 16 points. I think Ohio State lost a couple of points from the Penn State game because, like you said, and I said it on a podcast with, I was doing somebody's podcast yesterday, Matt Zemek from, Twitter.
I do. Are you cheating on me?
No. I was a guest on his, I think, Get Off My Pylon podcast. And I think I said the same thing. They tasted their own blood. Or perhaps in the dodgeball version, nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Yes.
Nobody. And Penn State did that. And then I think maybe it woke them up a little bit. But for Michigan to come into this game and come out of it with a win, they're going to need some bounces like Penn State got. I think they're more equipped to handle some of those bounces just because you're at home, the momentum, and not just for what it does for Michigan, but what it does against Ohio State, against Justin Fields, against J.K. Dobbins. And every play is magnified even more, and it makes catches more difficult, makes everything just a little bit edgier, and that's where you get those. That's what the home field advantage is in these games.
Yeah, this is a place that Ohio State has gone in and won, and none of these Ohio State players have lost to Michigan. None of the Michigan players have beaten Ohio State. It does seem a little bit like if Ohio State gets up early, you're going to get that, oh crap, here we go again kind of mentality from Michigan and Michigan fans. And, you'll get that in a stadium. Like you remember 2 years ago we were up there and, it was that second half happened and O'Korn throws that terrible interception. And it was even the first half. Michigan was up 14-0, right?
I think so, yeah.
And Ohio State's kind of driving, and Josh Metellus drops, which just is an absolute sure
easy
pick six. And you just had this oh no. If you were an Ohio State fan old enough to remember the 90s, you know exactly what that feeling feels like. It's just, the roof is going to come, falling in on you at some point, and it's just a matter of when, and you're just constantly on guard. You're trying to guard your emotions from the terrible burning that they feel every year at this time. And as the defense mechanism is, as soon as something happens, you just go up, here we go again. And, that sucks the crowd out of it. Yep. And, there are probably going to be a fair number of Buckeye fans there as well. So,
and the crowd thing is an interesting point because we'll be doing a show later in the week where I've asked for Michigan fans to give their concerns about the game. And one of them was, Ohio State goes down and drives down on their first possession and scores a touchdown, because that automatically gets the "here we go again" thing going, and that's a concern that they have, and it's something that Ohio State has been pretty good about doing, and I think they're right to be concerned.
Yeah, I mean, this is there is a certain amount of, you can kind of write off the first drive sometimes, that you have a. You go into a game with a script, and if not, Ohio State doesn't use a script like some teams do, but, they have certain plays that they want to see what the opponent does to it, against those certain looks and those certain plays. So you spend a lot of time thinking about that first drive. You see a lot of teams go down the field to score that first time, and then
that's it.
That's it. We talked about that a couple weeks ago with the Michigan State game. Michigan State always has something schemed up for that opening drive. They go down the field, they score, they're up 7-0, and then they lose 44-10. Because they don't, then Michigan adjusts, and then Michigan State has nothing to counterpunch. That's going to be the real interesting thing to see. If Ohio State's up 7-0, if they're up 10-0, if they're up 14-0, okay, Don Brown adjusts. Does Ohio State have the counter move to what Don Brown does at that point? Because, I think I have a sense for what Michigan's going to try and do going into the game, but, once they see what Ohio State's doing, how do they adjust to that, and how does Ohio State adjust to the adjustment?
And then it still just comes down to pick up that blitz.
Yeah.
If you pick up the blitz, you'll be okay. If you've blocked that pass rusher, if they don't get to Justin Fields, they have no chance in this game. I'll go out on a limb and say that one.
Well, that's as far as we talked earlier about weaknesses on the Ohio State defense, the weakness on the Ohio State offense is pass pro. Yeah. That is, they have not protected Justin Fields particularly well this year, and it hasn't killed them. They had, what did Penn State have, 3 sacks?
Yep.
And they've had some games where it's like, 3-4 sacks, and that's not great. As long as you can absorb 3 sacks, as long as the quarterback is hanging onto the ball and the quarterback isn't getting hurt when he's getting sacked, you can deal with 3 sacks. It just becomes a matter of, okay, is he under pressure on all of his other snaps? Is he constantly dodging and ducking? And want to stick with our dodgeball theme? Diving, ducking, dodging, dipping.
Well, dodging is twice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. We're getting close. We're close enough. No one actually remembers that movie that well, so no one can correct us.
I went to the theater and saw it twice.
Well, what was that, like 2 weeks ago or like 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So if Justin Fields is constantly under assault in that pocket and doesn't have a running lane to get out, then you're looking at the rush and you're not looking at your receivers downfield. Because I think Ohio State's receivers are going to be able to get open downfield.
Yes,
at times.
they will.
So you just have to, they have to give Justin Fields enough time and kind of a clean pocket to throw often enough that they can move the ball. And if he can, if Justin Fields has a clean pocket, Ohio State wins.
Yep, and if he doesn't and he's getting harassed, then you're talking a 28-17 type of game, 21-17 type of game maybe. What's next?
You have ones on the board. I was scrolling down to try and find those, and I have not actually found them yet.
I got them here. Here we go. Will the Michigan passing game have success against us? That is from In the Zone.
Against us, like you and me? Or,
yeah. Me and you. You be deep safety. My knees can't handle it now.
I don't like my chances against Nikko Collins personally, but fortunately, I will not be the one who's out there.
You could take Ronnie Bell. He was like the number 800 receiver in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
He's terrible.
Yeah. If all you remember about Ronnie Bell this year is the end of the Penn State game, Ronnie Bell has had some big games since then. He's put up I think he had a 100-yard game against Michigan State. He had
one catch last week though.
Yeah, he had
don't worry about it. It was a touchdown.
But. Yeah, he had, I think it was like 1 for 6 last week, but he's had some big games between Penn State and now. So
we've pretty much talked about the passing game.
Don't write off Ronnie Bell just because of the Penn State game.
This one from Indiana Buckeye. How much of the Buckeye offensive playbook have we seen this fall? Note, since we've steamrolled most teams, I'd say about less than 60%. I think that's probably what Jeremy Ruckert said a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, we've seen a little bit more with the 5 wide, the empty sets, with the running and that. And I don't know if we've seen any more than that. But I do believe there is plenty left. And not that they've been saving it for Michigan, but just that they haven't had to use it yet. And I don't know what they're holding back against Penn State. Maybe they felt like, you know what, we can win it this way. Let's do this. And but that's not really, I don't think that's what Ryan Day was doing in terms of saving something for Michigan. I will say Michigan with that 2-point play, simply to make Ohio State work on it.
Yeah, it was like a swinging gate look, basically. Yeah. That was weird. Oh, because I was in the press box kind of writing after the Ohio State game and just saw that they had gone for 2, and it was like, that makes no sense.
It made no sense.
I saw it just in the box score, and it was like, why would you go for 2 up 16 when kicking a PAT gives you a 3-score lead? Like, that makes no sense. That is, like, some people talk about, like, oh, they're just doing something to get something filmed. That is literally just trying to get something on film.
There was no way you would ever, you're sitting in a 16-point lead and think, you know what we ought to do?
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it more difficult on ourselves to get up by 3 scores. Not even if, well, I don't know. Jim Harbaugh has a Michigan education. Is that correct? No. But yeah, that was for Ohio State and nobody else. And what happens when we see it? Maybe it might be one of those things where, I don't know, you would run it against Ohio State just to get the timeout. But now that surprise is gone, so you won't even run it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they have something off of that, maybe, but it sure seems like if you really were going to use it against Ohio State, you don't show it before Ohio State.
This one from Brutus92. Will Ryan Day play conservative or break out a trick play or two? I don't think there's a need for a trick play. That's not really what Ohio State does.
No.
Other than the onside kick. But that's not really a trick. That's more of a surprise. And those are 2 totally different things. Although...
surprise or treat?
If you were going to pull a trick play, and you haven't done it all season long, which of these wide receivers can throw the ball, do something like that? If only, Tom. If only they still had Tate Martell.
I'm thinking, and things have gone so great for Miami this season that Miami just lost to an airport. So. If you didn't see that, Miami lost to Florida International University and Butch Davis.
And it wasn't
not great.
That was a beatdown, even though the score was close, but they got beat up.
Yeah, they lost to an airport and it was not as close as the score indicated. That's not great.
I think there'll be some conservative things there, but Ryan Day preaches the aggression, and they might have to be a little bit aggressive this week because Michigan does have some potential to score. Plus, that's kind of what you do against Michigan of late. That's what Urban Meyer does.
Yeah, Urban kept the pedal down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And clearly there's two different ways to skin a cat.
Yes.
You got the Jim Tressel way. You got the Urban Meyer way. Maybe we'll see if there's three ways.
Yeah, I think that there's a decent possibility they're more aggressive this week than last week, solely because Michigan does have those big play wide receivers. If Michigan's down 17 points in the third quarter, Ohio State's not going to feel that comfortable because, okay, you pop one to Nikko Collins, okay, it's 10 points. You pop one, you hit another one, you get one turnover, boom. Ohio State last week, they're up big, and it was basically, as long as Ohio State doesn't fumble the ball away 3 times this game, they'll be fine. And then they fumbled it away 3 times, and they were still fine. But Penn State's offense had given no indication that they were going to be able to do anything against Ohio State's defense. So at that point, you do throttle down and just you limit the opponent's chances to score. Michigan's offense is probably we this is not like retconning this. This is, I think we basically talked pretty openly about this a couple weeks ago. Michigan's a better challenge for Ohio State this year than Penn State is, just based on skill, talent, and line play and all that kind of stuff. So I think that they will probably be more aggressive this week than they were last week. If they play Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, and they're up by 3 touchdowns, you might see them throttle back down again. I don't think that happens this week in Ann Arbor, unless the weather's real bad and you've got a chance to have something really crazy happen.
Plus, if you've got a chance to blow Michigan out, why would you pass that up?
When has Ohio State ever blown Michigan out? Can you come up with one example? I can't, off the top of my head.
Off of one, no. I can come up with more. Here's the final one. If Justin Fields is limited in some capacity and either can't play or plays poorly, what's Ohio State's chances of winning? Playing poorly, that's going to be a no-go. I still think Ohio State would still have a chance to win if Justin Fields plays poorly because Ohio State's defense is still on the field.
Right.
The running game is there. Some big plays can happen through that defense. And playing poorly still might mean he turns it over twice and produces 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, if he throws 2 interceptions on Saturday, that's a disaster. He's thrown one all season, and you could still have a pretty good day throwing 2 interceptions.
And he will throw an interception this week. I think that's a given.
That seems like, that stat about 36 touchdowns and 1 interception or whatever it is, that has been repeated often enough that now the universe is definitely not going to let him stay at 1 interception. It's like when Jabril Peppers got when the universe was like, fine. When the 1 millionth person says you have no career interceptions, you have to get it against Ohio State.
Well, and you had so many Buckeye fans, and I told them, I think the day before, like, you guys are going to cost Ohio State. Jabril Peppers is going to get an interception because all you talk about is how he doesn't have any. So, enjoy that bad. And they did.
And it all worked out.
All right. That'll do it. Michigan Mailbag. First show of the week of Michigan Week, if you will. I will not.
I was just in a Chipotle grabbing lunch right before we started recording, and all the M's on the menu are crossed out. All the M's on the fountain drink machine are crossed out. So it's Init Aid Leonade. It was like, boy, this is, 51 weeks a year, this is such a nice, normal, wholesome Midwestern city, and then for 1 week a year, it just turns into an open-air insane asylum.
Yep.
It's great.
And I was doing some work, having breakfast at McDonald's in Westerville, and a lady probably in her 60s was telling a fella probably in his 60s, 11-0 means nothing if we lose to Michigan. And he, of course, agreed. And then he talked about if Justin Fields can't go, he's not sure Chugginoff or Hoke are the answers. And they were locked in. They were ready to go. And I wasn't even sure if they had their coffee yet. But that's Michigan week. And that doesn't matter what part of Columbus, either, where you were here or where I was over there. And we're not even, who knows what campus is like right now. It might be on fire.
That tends to happen after the game.
After the game,
yes,
correct.
Yes.
All right, that's first one down. We got plenty more to come. I can't even describe all of them to you.
They're about football.
Oh, football and Michigan, and just each day we're hoping to have one. Maybe not on Thursday. Probably not on Thursday. Maybe
you can take a day off and spend it with your family. It wouldn't be the worst thing. Your mileage may vary. Excuse me, your mileage may vary.